The truth that nearly ended Brendan Fraser's career. How did a 90s legend go from being the Mummy star to a complete Hollywood outcast, only to win an Oscar 10 years later? Brendan Fraser's story is the ultimate comeback. In the 90s, he was a box office king with hits like George of the Jungle and The Mummy, a franchise so big it's still celebrated 25 years later. But then the phone stopped ringing. Brendan was forced off the grid for a decade. Fast forward to today, he's the most beloved man in movies again. With an Oscar win for The Whale and a 6-minute standing ovation that moved the world to tears, the king of the 90s is officially back on his throne. But what was that big secret that almost ended Brendan's career? How did he manage to reinvent himself? Brendan's first big break came in 1991. But just 1 year later, he was already a leading man. In 1992, he showed the world his range. 1 minute, he was playing a literal caveman in the comedy Encino Man, and the next, he was holding his own against Matt Damon in the heavy drama School Ties. But his real superstar moment came in 1997. Brendan took a 60s cartoon character, George of the Jungle, and turned it into a massive $180 million hit. He was now a box office powerhouse who could carry a movie on his back. By 1998, Brendan was a comedy king, but he was about to prove he was a serious heavyweight actor too. He took a massive risk on an indie film called Gods and Monsters. It wasn't a blockbuster, it only made about $6.5 million. But it was a critical masterpiece. While his co-star Ian McKellen got the Oscar buzz, Brendan's performance proved he could do more than swing from vines. But if Gods and Monsters earned him respect, 1999 was the year he became a legend. Enter The Mummy. Brendan stepped into the boots of Rick O'Connell, a role that felt like a modern-day Indiana Jones. The movie was a monster hit, grossing over $416 million worldwide. It led to 2 massive sequels, a spin-off with The Rock, and an animated series. On May 7, 2024, the film celebrated its 25th anniversary, and fans are still obsessed. Why? Because Brendan brought a perfect mix of tough guy and relatable hero that nobody else could pull off. By the early 2000s, it felt like you couldn't turn on a screen without seeing Brendan's face. He was everywhere. He starred in the comedy hit Bedazzled, teamed up with Bugs Bunny in Looney Tunes, Back in Action, and even joined the cast of the Oscar-winning drama Crash. He was even popping up in your favorite shows like Scrubs and The Simpsons. He was so big that in 2006, he became the first American-born actor to get a star on Canada's Walk of Fame. From the outside, he was on top of the world, but on the inside, his body was screaming for help. In a famous 2018 interview, Brendan revealed the dark side of being an action hero. By the time he was filming the 3rd Mummy movie in 2008, he was, in his own words, put together with tape and ice. He was tired and broken. Years of doing his own stunts had destroyed his spine and his knees. For the next 7 years, he was in and out of hospitals for surgeries on his back, his knees, and even his vocal cords. He was being bolted back together like a real-life Frankenstein's monster, all the while trying to keep a smile on for the cameras. As if the physical pain wasn't enough, Brendan's personal life was starting to fracture too. In late 2007, he and his wife announced they were divorcing after 9 years. But this wasn't a quiet split. It became a massive financial drain. Brendan was ordered to pay $900,000 a year in alimony and child support. At the time, people assumed he was a wealthy movie star who could afford it. But with his body failing and the big movie roles drying up, the money simply wasn't there anymore. By 2013, he had to go to court to ask for a reduction because he was drowning financially. Brendan later described this era as a total transformation. He was dealing with divorce, moving houses, and watching his kids grow up while his own world felt like it was falling apart. The man who once saved the world on the big screen was now trying to survive his own life. By the late 2000s, Brendan Fraser had become a ghost in Hollywood. But when he finally resurfaced, it wasn't the homecoming fans expected. In 2016, Brendan sat down for a rare interview to talk about his role in the show The Affair. The video quickly went viral, but for all the wrong reasons. Fans were shocked. Brendan looked sad, quiet, and completely drained. The internet began to wonder what happened to our hero. The truth was much more heartbreaking than anyone realized. Just days before that interview, Brendan had buried his mother, Carol. He was in deep mourning, trying to process his grief in front of a camera while feeling like the world had passed him by. But there was one final, darker reason why Brendan walked away from the spotlight. For 15 years, he carried a secret that had been eating him alive. In 2018, Brendan finally found the courage to tell his full truth. He allegedly revealed that back in 2003, at a high-profile luncheon, he was sexually assaulted by Philip Burke, the man who was then the president of the organization behind the Golden Globes. Burke has denied the claims, but for Brendan, the damage was already done. In that moment, he said he felt like a little kid. He felt like he was going to cry, and as he described it, it felt like someone had thrown invisible paint on him. He felt marked, changed, and sick to his stomach. He told his wife what happened, but he didn't tell the world. Why? Because in the early 2000s, speaking up against a powerful Hollywood executive felt like career suicide. He was terrified of the humiliation and afraid that the industry would blacklist him for speaking out. Instead of fighting back, he pulled back. He retreated into himself, wondering if the Hollywood he loved was worth the pain it was causing him. After the incident, Brendan pulled away from everyone. He fell into a deep depression, blaming himself for what happened. He told himself it was nothing, but the truth was, it felt like something had been stolen from him. While the executive involved brushed it off as a joke, Brendan felt the consequences were very real. He was no longer invited to the big award shows. To Brendan, the silence from Hollywood was deafening. He felt blacklisted. A star whose light had been intentionally dimmed, but you can't keep a legend down forever. In 2018, the tide finally started to turn. Brendan started taking roles again, moving from the big screen to our TV screens. He joined the DC universe, voicing the fan-favorite Robot Man in Titans and Doom Patrol. It was the perfect role for him, playing a character who was trapped inside a metal suit, trying to find his humanity again. And that's when the internet stepped in. On TikTok and Twitter, a massive movement was born, the Renaissance. Millions of fans who grew up watching The Mummy realized their hero was back, and they weren't going to let him disappear again. The love was loud, it was global, and it was exactly what Brendan needed to hear. But the biggest moment of Brendan's life was just around the corner. Director Darren Aronofsky had been searching for 10 years to find the right actor for his new film, The Whale. When he saw Brendan in a small indie trailer, he knew he had found his man. Brendan took the lead role as Charlie, a 600-pound man trying to reconnect with his daughter. It was a total transformation. He spent 4 hours a day in prosthetics and bags of ice, disappearing into a character that was as broken and vulnerable as he once felt. As Brendan later told Darren, "I was in the wilderness and you found me." In September 2022, The Whale premiered at the Venice Film Festival. As the credits rolled, something incredible happened. The audience didn't just clap, they stood on their feet for 6 straight minutes. Brendan, overwhelmed by the love he hadn't felt in years, broke down in tears. By late 2022, the Renaissance was unstoppable. He received another 5-minute standing ovation in London, once again leaving him in tears. But as the Golden Globes approached, everyone had one question. Would he show up? The answer was a firm no. Despite being the frontrunner for an award, Brendan announced he would boycott the ceremony. His reason was simple: he hadn't forgotten the history he had with the organization and the man who had hurt him years prior. As the hype reached its pitch, Brendan shared the moment with the people who mattered most, his family. During a special screening of The Whale in New York City, Brendan made a rare appearance on the red carpet with his sons, Holden and Leland, and his girlfriend, Jean Moore. After years of staying off the grid, seeing Brendan happy and surrounded by his kids was the ultimate feel-good moment for fans. But the good news didn't stop there. When The Whale finally hit theaters, it shattered records. The movie had the biggest opening of any limited release film that year. It sold out every single theater it played in, averaging $60,000 per screen. To put that in perspective, it was director Darren Aronofsky's biggest hit since Black Swan, the movie that won Natalie Portman her Oscar. The message from the public was loud and clear. They weren't only curious about Brendan's return, they were showing up in large numbers to support it. The Renaissance was officially a box office powerhouse. Hollywood tried to call his name, but Brendan stayed true to his word. In December 2022, the Golden Globes officially nominated Brendan for Best Actor. He was up against heavy hitters like Austin Butler and Hugh Jackman. But even with a nomination in his hand, Brendan's seat at the ceremony remained empty. He had made his choice, and he was sticking to it. Instead of the shining parties, Brendan took his story to the fans. During an interview with Seth Meyers, he poked fun at his own emotional return. When asked about those famous standing ovations, he joked, "I think it depends on who's holding the stopwatch." But underneath the jokes, the old insecurities were still there. Brendan admitted that even with all the praise, he felt like he was waiting for someone to walk into the room and tell him the jig was up, that it was all a dream. He was a man rediscovering his own worth in real time. He didn't realize that for the rest of the world, the jig wasn't up. It was just getting started. On January 24th, 2023, the Renaissance reached its peak. After 30 years in the business, Brendan Fraser finally heard the 3 words he'd waited a lifetime for: Academy Award nominee. It was beyond a win for him. It was a sweep for the team that brought The Whale to life. His co-star Hong Chau was nominated, and the makeup team who transformed Brendan into Charlie earned a nod too. But Brendan's reaction was exactly what we've come to expect: pure class. He didn't brag, he gave all the credit away. He thanked his director, his crew, and his co-stars for giving him what he called the gift of Charlie. He told the world that this was a gift he never saw coming, and more importantly, it was a gift that had profoundly changed his life. The man who once felt like he was being put together with tape and ice was now being celebrated as one of the greatest actors of his generation. The comeback was no longer a theory, it was a reality. March 12th, 2023, the Dolby Theatre held its breath. The envelope opened and the name echoed through the room: Brendan Fraser. The standing ovation wasn't only from the people in that room, it was from fans all over the world. As Brendan walked onto that stage to accept his first ever Oscar for The Whale, the emotion was overwhelming.
This is what the multiverse looks like. Oh, my goodness. I thank the Academy for this honor and for our studio A24 for making such a bold film.
Looking out at his sons in the audience, he reflected on his 30-year journey. He admitted that back in the 90s, things came easily to him, but he didn't truly appreciate his gift until it was taken away. So, where does a legend go after winning an Oscar? Anywhere he wants. Brendan is now officially back in the leading man's seat. He recently starred in The Comedy Brothers alongside Josh Brolin and Peter Dinklage, showing he still has those 90s comedy skills we fell in love with. And early in 2026, he moved into prestige drama once again with Rental Family. He plays a struggling American actor living in Tokyo who gets hired to play roles in the lives of strangers. It's a heart-wrenching, unique story that has critics once again buzzing about his sensitive star power. From action hero to Oscar winner to international character actor. Brendan Fraser's second act is just getting started. Which era of Brendan Fraser is your favorite? The 90s action star or the modern-day Oscar winner? Let us know in the comments and hit that subscribe button to stay updated on the most inspiring stories in Hollywood. Thanks for watching.